Hi there, listeners. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I'm your host, Grace Becker. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and an enthusiast of life. And today I am joined by my friend, Taylah.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Taylah. Taylah is a friend of the pod. We had her on once before when we were talking about making friends as an adult. And we love her here on this podcast. So thanks so much for joining me, Taylah. I'm so happy to have you on.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Taylah is such a trooper. She sat with me and my editor trying to fix some of the audio stuff that was going on a while back. We figured out the issue, guys. We figured it out, and hopefully knock on fucking wood, because I never want to deal with this again. But we're back and we're here to record, and today we're going to be talking about things to discuss with your partners before you take the next step. And the next step could mean all sorts of things. It's big steps before you move in together, before you get engaged, get married, before you decide to have kids, different things like that. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. But before we do, Taylah, why don't you tell me about what's been going on with you lately?
Well, I just got back from Boston with my little sister. We went on a sister's trip because she just graduated high school. It was so much fun. We stayed in Boston, but we also went up to Salem. I had two cool things to tell Grace on the podcast. I was going to tell you that we were walking the city and we stumbled upon a graveyard right in the middle of the city, but it was a historic graveyard.
Oh.
And it's where Benjamin Franklin's parents are buried. Paul Revere is buried there. All the graves are from the 17 or 1800s.
What are they? Are they massive graves?
Some of them are just tiny headstones. Mm-hmm. They used to do a lot of cool carvings in them, skulls and stuff, or skulls with wings and stuff. It was really cool. And then in Salem, we went there to just walk the city too, and we stumbled upon, they had this plaque, and it was a memorial of the hangings of the Salem witch trial. They said that they had a couple hundred people on trial, but 20 of them were actually hung right here. And then you could walk around they had the grass area oh my God, off, and then along the sides they had a sidewalk around it, and along the sides were 20 benches with the names of each person that was executed as a witch back during the Salem witch trials.
That is so
in their honor.
Oh my gosh. Imagine being executed because you like your little potions and whatever. Oh my gosh. How did it feel being there? Did you feel eerie at all?
Yeah, it was a heavy energy.
Yeah.
But we went to the Museum of Torture too.
Oh my God. Museum of Torture?
Yeah. And it felt like one of those places that was important to go because we were there. Mm-hmm. Because, we got walked in and the guy was these are all real things from real history, really used on people. Mm-hmm. And we walked through the upstairs part, and then it went downstairs, and they were so heartbreaking. And reading about them, it was so heavy. So we actually left. We didn't finish
because it was so heavy.
And we walked out, and we were do you have many people come out this way? And he was surprisingly way more than you think. And he's
really?
We have a lot of psychics that come through here, and they can't finish because the energy is so strong and negative. And he goes, I'm not sure that this helps, but we also are on the burial grounds of the old jail, way back in the day, where they just threw bodies that people didn't care about.
That place is so haunted. Absolutely haunted.
He was and I really doubt that they cared to dig up the people before putting this building here.
Probably not. They probably didn't care. Who cares about witches, or who cares about people who were in jail? It's so messed up. Those are still people.
Mm-hmm. So he was he thinks it really does have a bad energy there.
Absolutely. But it's so historic. There's so much, what stories live within those walls. Yeah, that's wild. What was maybe one of the things in the torture museum that you were holy shit, I can't believe that actually happened to a person? Trigger warning.
I took a picture of it because it broke my heart and the description. But a chastity belt, an iron undergarment with a lock and key on the front.
Have you never heard of chastity belts before?
Never seen one either. And it wrote about how like they would often die within days or weeks because of the infections that they would get down there, and how they didn't actually do anything, were nothing but a grotesque fantasy.
Yeah. Just to like keep them like absent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one, like, I actually started tearing up in there.
It is. It's messed up. Honestly, it's a really powerful message to like be to go and tour that and to see that, and then be living in our day and age today with what's going on in our world. That's very impactful, I bet. I mean, I don't know if people are walking around with chastity belts. Honestly, some people do. I've heard podcasts or like stories where people will do that because for some people it's like a kink. And and it's just, it's
hopefully not
wild.
these ones. These ones were like, they had like sharp, like barely cut iron sides, like rusty. They would turn rusty.
Yep. And that's what would lead to the infections. Wow, that's, oh my gosh.
Well, and that they can't take it off to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, nope. You just have to go. Just go in your chastity belt. Oh my God. Well, besides that, it sounds like from what you told me from your other adventures in Boston that it was a really fun trip.
It was so fun. I saw where the Boston Tea Party happened. We walked all the way over there. It was so cool how much of the city was like just redone in the old historic buildings.
Yeah.
So we saw some, like, Chipotle was in this random, like, circular building, all brick with, like, windows on the second story. It was so, like, weird and
oh my gosh.
weird to be in.
I bet that just feels odd for people who live there. I'm sure it's kind of like, oh, whatever. Yeah, there's the Chipotle. But for some people like us, it's like, oh my God, there's a fucking Chipotle here. Like, what?
Well, the building looks like it's straight out of the 1700s.
Yeah, that's why it's like,
Chipotle.
Why? Like, they needed their burrito back then, too.
It was so fun.
Oh my gosh, I bet. That sounds really fun. Oh, well, thanks for sharing some
of course.
your trip with us. That's wild. I would love to go to Boston. I've wanted to go out there for so long. That's just one of those like bucket list items. That in Maine. I would love to go to Maine too.
I want to go to Maine so bad.
Yeah, really, really bad. Okay, well, should we just get into our episode for today then?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that every relationship is unique, and the path each couple takes, whether that is moving in together, getting engaged, getting married, starting a family, it looks different for different people. So this episode is meant to just offer helpful questions and considerations, not rigid advice. So some of the topics that Taylah and I discussed today may bring up some strong emotions or highlight differences in values, experiences, or timelines, and that is totally okay. Our goal is just to support intentional, open, and compassionate conversations with your partners, but not to prescribe a one-size-fits-all approach, right? So take all of these things with like a grain of salt. Take like what works for you, what resonates with you, and leave the rest. So yeah. The first one that I just thought of right off the bat, because in my mind I'm trying to think of major like life events you tend to choose with your partner. In the first one that I could think of outside of deciding to get into the relationship was moving in together. Is there anything before that, Taylah, that you can think of that's considered like a big step?
I mean, not really unless you're really young. Sometimes college can be like a factor if you've been together like since the young years of high school. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I don't really think so.
Yeah. The only other one that I thought of was like choosing to get to be intimate, to have sex. Mm-hmm. Because some people, I mean, again, right, like different life circumstances, okay? So some people do choose to wait until they're moved in together, till they're married, engaged. Mm-hmm. But I know that a lot of people don't choose to do that. So that was the other big event that I thought of.
Right.
So before we get into like the moving in together, what are some maybe things that you think are a good idea for people to discuss before they decide to have sex or to be intimate?
This is actually, I love this question.
Yeah.
Because I am still with my first and only partner.
Nice.
And I made him wait a long time because I we got together when we were young. We were 17. I had never been like with anyone else, and I was like, I've never been in a really good relationship either prior to this. So I was like, let's see if we are good together first, and then we'll try it out. I think he waited like 3 or 4 months, which felt like forever in teenage years, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I still remember the exact day, like September 27th.
The day. I love it. The anniversary. I love that you know the day. Oh my gosh.
It was like he had just gotten done like the homecoming football game. Like, I don't know. It felt like a magical teenage moment. We were driving around after the homecoming football game, and like, I was like,
it's like straight out of a movie.
It was
like and you're both like horny teenagers. Like, you probably were like edging, and it's like, oh my god, tonight's the night. Did you both just know, or did you talk about stuff first?
It was just me. Like, he was ready, and he had done it before me, and so he was ready from the start. It was just a me thing. But like early on, he had kind of like poked at it, and I was like, not until I'm ready. And if you have a problem with that, like, adios.
Bye
right?
bye.
And he didn't. And so like that is my main advice. That's been my main advice to my little sister. Like, the person that wants you is not going to have an issue waiting until you're ready. Like, I don't know, we were in the back seat, right? And I was like, I'm ready, right? And the whole time too, he was like, if you're absolutely positive, like, I don't want to rush this for you, we can wait. It's not an issue. And then like when we were moving forward, he was like, if you want me to stop, just tell me. If you need me to do something different, just tell me. He was so gentle and kind and like consent filled. I had an out at any point. I never felt rushed. It was completely at my pace. And I don't know, like, that would be my main piece of advice, is find the person that's willing to do that for you.
Right.
Because they are out there, and especially when you're young, a lot, like, it's true that a lot of boys are just in it for sex at that point, and it can feel really defeating, especially like if you do seek validation in that area.
Right.
So I think it's just really important to learn how to love you, like, very much first.
Right.
And when you have that done, find somebody that loves you too. And then when you're ready, take that next step.
Oh my gosh, that's so special that you got to have that experience with your now forever partner. Right? Like, that's really special to be able to say that.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that advice of, you know, pick that person who is going to be respectful of your boundaries and the things that you're currently comfortable with. And even before that, reflecting on what it is you want. Because, like, some people, you were also alluding to this, that some people, how they connect with others is through physical touch. And sometimes that includes intimacy, sex. And if, say, your partner really, really wants that, the intimacy and the sex, and that's just something that they need in a relationship, but you're not ready for that, both, like, opinions, totally valid. Like, you can express what you need. It's just, do you push the other person to do something they're not ready for? Or do you respectfully be like, okay, like, I accept that, like, I'll wait. Or maybe we end our relationship and find someone who is willing to give us what we want.
Well, that's just it. Because, like, sexual preferences can be a determining factor in whether relationships work or not. And I think keep your boundaries, keep what you want to do, because if somebody else is needing something completely different, that might just not be your person. You don't have to change your boundaries to meet that person where they're at. Right.
Yeah. And you never should have to sacrifice yourself or something that you believe in or value for the other person. Like, if you feel that you have to do that in order to receive their care, their affection, their love, then that is a major red flag. Yeah, absolutely. I guess I would also recommend, if it feels right for you, maybe talking about how you would like it, because I know me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people, we have a preconceived notion on how our first time is gonna go, and it can sometimes be a really big letdown.
Yes.
How it does go, you know. So maybe talk about that if you can, if it's appropriate, like, be like, so what's like, what would be your ideal way to do this? Like, would you want it to be kind of a one time, like, hey, are you consentful of this? And then have, like that understanding of, if I say stop, we stop. Or do you want me to continuously check in throughout the evening or the morning or the afternoon to make sure that you're still okay? You know what I mean? And like, how do you want it to go? Right. It doesn't mean you might necessarily not get that, but sometimes it's a good idea to have an understanding of what would make your partner comfortable. Like
before you go into it.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between having it in the back of a car versus like having it in a bed or having it in like your parents' house. Like, you know what I mean? Like mom and dad are in the next room. Oh my gosh.
For sure. Definitely a good conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else with that big step that you think would be a good idea for partners to talk about?
I don't really have anything coming to mind.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to think too. I was like, I don't know if anything necessarily discussed with your partner. I think more self-reflective things to do.
I think it's very much a self-reflection topic because, I don't know, like, it can become a casual thing in your life, but I feel like that first time, like, it's always a little bit scary because it's so unknown. Right. So make sure you feel comfortable and it's what you're wanting and what you're liking and at your pace.
Yes, I agree. Oh, and one very important thing, talk about different protection that you want.
Yes.
Like birth control, condom, like what are you wanting?
Double down,
like
do
what
both.
Do you need? Yeah,
do
like
both.
Make sure you talk about that because sometimes if you don't and you are like you go to have sex and all of a sudden your partner's like, I don't have a condom. I'm not on birth control and we don't have a condom. It's like, oh my God.
Like, do you just turn it off now or like?
Yeah.
Just have the conversation beforehand.
Yeah. Maybe also have the conversation of, have you recently had other partners?
Right.
Especially if you're not using a condom. Like, gotta protect yourself, y'all. Gotta protect yourself.
That's a good question,
Just
too.
because you're on birth control doesn't mean that you're protected from STIs. So, yeah, those are important things. I can't believe we forgot. We're like, yeah, talk about where you want to have it.
Well, honestly, like, different lifestyle again, but I've been out of the single game for a pretty long time, so I don't really consider things like
totally fair. And yeah, like when you're just starting out, it's like, oh yeah, these are things I gotta think about it. But then once you're in that
very important things to think about.
Yeah, but when you're in a relationship, you just know, like, yeah, my freaking fiance of however many years, like, I know that they have this or whatever. So yeah, this birth control or something like that. So yes, good point. Okay, the next kind of big life step that I thought about was moving in together. And I know one of the first things that I think about when you want to move in with another person, just straight off the bat, is like daily habits, lifestyle compatibility. So this is like your schedule. Like, what's your sleep schedule like? What's your cleanliness like? Are you introverted, extroverted? Like, do you care if we like host? Do you not want us to host? Different things like that. What are your thoughts with that topic under living together?
Those are very important conversations to have because it can be wild to sign a lease with somebody, be locked in for a year, and then they turn out to be like the worst person you've ever lived with. And like partners for sure, especially because you're looking at long term, those are good questions. But even like roommates was my kicker. Like moving in with somebody that you don't know the habits of is hard, especially if you don't like the habits. And if you're a talking partner, it's very easy and important to talk about what combining your lifestyles look like in one home together.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too with the roommates, because those are good things to talk about with anyone that you live with. And when we are talking about with a partner specifically, it's just a whole nother level of connection you have with that person. So you want to be more especially mindful of, okay, like if we're doing sleep schedules with a roommate, it's like, okay, like your sleep schedule probably doesn't affect me. Yeah, but if it's your partner, you might be sleeping in the same bed, so it probably affects you more.
Even like with chores, when you have roommates and you're like, okay, I'm not washing those are my roommates. But then like you always do dinner with your partner, so now it's more of like a unit dishes or a unit cleaning the house. Rather than like mine and theirs.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And you also said a good point of signing leases. Yeah, if you sign a lease, like most people I know sign leases for at least a year, maybe like a 6-month lease. And that's a major commitment, and it's hard to get out of leases. So
nearly impossible.
Yeah, so if it doesn't work out for some reason, like that's going to be a bitch to get out of. And it's not only going to affect your like mental state with the struggle of getting out of your lease, but you have to see that person every day. Like if it doesn't work out and you didn't talk about these things beforehand, it could just save you a whole lot of headache.
I actually had a friend that happened to, like, they moved in with each other, and then 2 months in, like, they couldn't stand each other anymore. They had such different lifestyles and, like, did not mesh in the house. So then, like, he left, and she ended up having to stay the whole 8 months. Now, like, thinking you're going to have a dual income for the whole year, single income the whole rest of the lease.
Did he not, like, contribute to the rent?
Well,
she just covered it herself?
It was like a 1-bedroom apartment. So, like, they didn't want to live together anymore. He got off the lease, and she just had to assume, like, the whole thing.
Sure. Okay, I thought it was, like, they just, like, kind of handshake deal. Like, she'll take it over. But I'm like, but if his name is still on the lease, I would be like, nah, buddy, you still got to pay it up.
No, but even that, like, I would consider, if you do move in together and it all goes to heck, like, don't sign a place that you couldn't afford on your own either.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's something important to consider, especially if, like, you only have a 1-bedroom. Sometimes it's just good to consider having an out if you're trying something this new. Too. Another little thought to have, I guess.
But if you're doing these questions, though, beforehand, you wouldn't maybe have to worry about something like that because you have that just understanding. Yeah, very good point. I know that, like, my personal experience, I was in a long-term relationship. Taylah knows about this. But I won't name any names, but I was in a long-term relationship with somebody. And when we broke up, we had a few months, I think like 2 months left on our lease together. And that was such a headache for me. Luckily, we had two-bedroom apartment, so we could just, like, split up the apartment, basically. And most of the time, like, either one of us just wouldn't be home, like, avoid each other. Or we would just avoid common areas, like the kitchen and the living room. And we also had our own bathrooms, too, so that's also a good thing. But it was hard.
Was it awkward living? Like, so you probably never had an evening, like, on the couch watching a movie.
No.
The whole 2 months?
No. Well, luckily, too, like, they found another place. So, really, it was only for maybe a few, like, 2 weeks or so.
Oh, good.
I don't remember exactly. It was a while ago now. Yeah. But they luckily found another place, so I didn't have to deal with that.
I feel like even, like, running
awkward.
into each other at that point can just be so... And then it's weird, too, not being able to, like, sit in your own living room without having... like a little bit of an anxiety doing so too. Yeah.
And see, like, I mean, that was a little different because we did align on things though before we moved in together. That was like just a separate situation where we had broken up and then it was awkward. So it's not like we had these different like compatibility issues. It was something later that came up.
Right.
That was the end of our relationship. But it depends on the people, I think, for the awkwardness. Like, luckily, we kind of ended in good terms. So when we did bump into each other on the occasion, it wasn't too awkward.
Good.
But it was very rare that we did, honestly. Like, we avoided that freaking place like the plague if we could. I basically just, like, slept there. Otherwise, I was at school. I was with you. Like, I was at friends' houses. Ain't no way. Yeah. What are some other... like questions, like things you think are a good idea for couples to talk about before they move in together?
How you're going to split the finances of living together. Who's going to cover what portion of rent? You have to consider electricity. Like, eventually, if you guys do start getting cars and stuff, there's always going to be bills. And sometimes people make different amounts of money. And so talking about it beforehand, coming up with a plan that I would say is comfortable to what the person makes per year and like percentage wise, because 50-50 isn't always fair. If you have one partner making $60K and one partner making $20K, splitting bills 50-50 takes a way different percent from each person, you know?
I agree. And also looking even further asking, okay, what debts do we have individually? Yeah. What debts do you have combined? Because if one partner is making $60K but has like $40K in debt, right. and then the other partner is making $20K but has no debt, like that's another thing that could adjust, like that could impact like how you split bills too.
Yeah, and I would ask your partner about their debts just so you know what you're getting into beforehand too, because that it can be honestly very hard to be with somebody that's gotten themselves like $100,000 in the hole,
right?
And they're at the ripe age of 22, you know, and so I mean, it can, if you're gonna plan on getting married, that takes a lifetime to get out of usually. Yeah. Like you're committing to their debt too.
Yeah, because even though we're not like we'll talk about like getting engaged and married, but usually most couples, most partners I know, like maybe like 90% of the time, most people when they move in together, that's an indicator that, hey, I'm in this for the long haul, potentially engagement, potentially marriage, and potentially having kids. Very rarely do I ever hear like, yeah, we're moving in together, but we're going to break up in 2 years. So like whatevs, like peace out.
Right. But it's not that serious.
No,
we're moving in together, but it's not that serious.
It's not that serious. I don't even really know him.
I don't even really like him that much.
Yeah. Honestly. So yeah, that's a really good one. Like income, debt, budgeting style too. Like what are areas does one person especially like to eat out, order DoorDash? Do you prefer to cook? Like how are you going to budget your money? That's important to talk about. Pets, are you going to get pets? That's not only is that like a whole separate category in its own, but also pets are a financial responsibility in addition to just a commitment in general. So that's another thing with like that financial transparency
and time.
Yeah.
Time, especially if you're getting a dog, please have the time for one.
A dog, a cat, like, unless it's like a goldfish. That's probably the only thing that doesn't take up time. But who's going to sit there and stare at it? It needs its daily eye contact. Honestly, same. Who's going to reach inside that tank and pet him? That poor fish, they're probably touch deprived. Got to like get a fish for it to rub against.
That'd be such an interesting experiment to see if fish like physical touch.
That would be. Let's get on that. Let's get someone on that right now. Yeah. And then also for financial transparency in a relationship, like saving spending habits.
Yes.
Because I personally would struggle with a partner who was like very rigid about saving money, like no fun things. I'd be like, I understand not wanting me to go blow all my money or your money or our money, whatever,
right,
on things, but also I do still want to enjoy life.
Yes. It's important to enjoy life. Yeah. I feel like that's one of the hardest things to find a balance with too, because like where do you draw the line between just enjoying life and like saving for the future and being on similar terms? You don't even have to be on the exact same terms about it to make it work, but understanding each other's terms and being in similar terms is important, because if you're like polar opposites too with money, that can be really hard.
Exactly.
Too. And you have one person that's always broke because they just hyper spend, and one person that's super tight with their money and doesn't spend on anything. Like it can cause a lot of frustration between each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's why you want to have this conversation beforehand.
Yeah.
Because if you have it and you're getting frustrated and you just can't seem to come to an agreement on this, is that something that you're like, okay, if we can't come to an agreement, then I guess that's it. Like we can't move in together, right? So you will eventually, if you go through these questions and you can't find a compromise on something that's very important to you that you're not willing to sacrifice, then comes the hard decision of, do we go forward with this big step or not, right? Sometimes that is the hard thing that comes with it.
But it's much easier to make that decision beforehand than get into it for a long time and try and change it once you're all combined and stuff.
100%, yeah. And with your point that you made earlier about, like, how do you balance, like, spending, like, things that make you happy, but also saving, I would bring you back to your budget. Like, budget it out. Like, budget your income, your debt, things that you want to save for, things that you want to, like, buy. Like, if it's important to you to have $50 a month to go spend on clothes, then budget out for that, you know?
For sure.
You might have to make some sacrifices, but 'tis part of life.
For sure.
Yeah. What other moving in, like, questions would you say to people that's a good idea to talk about?
I would just reflect on your work schedule and what that looks like living together, because I mean there's so many different jobs. If you're on day shift and your partner's on night shift, and like it can be different when you're not living together and seeing each other when you can and having your separate lives, but when your house is always empty and like just reflecting the person that's not there with you, it can be hard. So I feel like having the conversation of what that might look like, how you can make quality time when you do have time together, maybe even like outside of the home, so you're really focused on each other, but what that would look like if you find yourselves having opposite work schedules.
Yeah, it almost sounds like in addition to the work schedule, right, like that lifestyle that we were talking about, you're also bringing up how are we going to spend our time alone and how are we going to spend our time together too, because that's important as well. Like, yes, if you're living together and you're in a relationship with somebody, you want to make quality time for each other, and you also want your alone time. So like if someone has a work schedule where they're like, yeah, I get done at 3 and you get done at 6, perfect, I'll have 3 hours of alone time. But then that person probably wants their alone time, right? So just figuring out those schedules and how you can schedule in time together and time alone.
Right. And if you have that conversation beforehand, you can kind of draw up what that might look like. Like,
yeah,
you know, I have that overlap, so I'll do my homework for college the 3 hours that you're gone. And then when I'm gone, you can tackle the dishes because you have extra time today. Like,
yeah, absolutely. That's really important. And yeah, the cleanliness one, I think, is a big one that comes up for people because people always have their own idea of what clean looks like. So talk about that. Like, what is your idea of clean? Is your idea of clean like daily, like vacuuming, daily, like picking up of the couch, daily cleaning the kitchen, like no dishes? Or is cleaning for you just, yeah, things are in order and there's not piles of garbage laying around? Like, get really specific with that. You know, the more specific, the better. You can never be too broad with these things.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I got kind of lucky in mine because we didn't talk about these things before moving, if I'm being honest. But we meshed really well on accident, I think, because we just care really deeply about the opposite things of the house. And it all gets done.
Yeah, exactly. Which, honestly, that brings up another thought from me. I don't fucking know. Like, how will you deal with conflicts? Because if, like, I just think about all the couples I've worked with, and a big conflict is, like, they won't clean their dishes. They won't do this. I'm the one to always do it. And it leads to conflicts. It can be more than just cleanliness. It could be conflicts about anything. But how will you argue with each other? How will you resolve things? Will you have that conversation of, yeah, like let's give ourselves some space if things get too heated? Or are you the type of person where if you leave to go have space, I'm going to feel abandoned? Like, talking about how you'll work through conflicts before you move in together, because they're bound to happen.
For sure.
Like, they're gonna happen. Talking about it's important.
Telling your partner what you need, like if them leaving their dish in the sink really bothers you, obviously for sure tell them that. But then I think really importantly, because I think especially in traditional relationships, women feel the burden of like the domestic stuff more and often find themselves like nagging about the stuff. Listen when your partner is telling you what things are really bothering them. Listen and work on it. That's the only way you can better your relationship. That's the only way you can grow as people. That's the only way you can grow as a couple. You have to listen to your partner when they're telling you what gets on their nerves, because it's almost always a slight correction on your part, and it's what makes dynamics work better.
Listen to understand, not to respond. Yeah, 100%. I love that one. And the last thought I had with this big step that kind of almost escalates us to the next like big step people take is us moving in together. Is that like, what does that mean to you? That's a good question to ask. Like, is this just a convenience thing? Like, I'm here and you needed someone to cover the other half of rent. Right. Is this a step to getting married? Is this a trial run to see if we get along? Like, what is this? Define it. Because if you two, like if you two, you three, you know, however many partners you have that you're living with, if you're all on different pages on what this is, that can be especially detrimental to a relationship.
For sure. That's a really good conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else, any other questions that you would recommend people to talk about before they take the step of moving in together?
honestly, just my personal advice, especially in our day and age right now, do the trial run of moving in together before like deciding that you're going to get engaged or get married. Yeah. Because you can find that you really love this person when you're not living with them, but living with them is a whole different world. I'm a big fan of the trial run.
Yeah. At minimum, do the trial run. Yeah. And honestly, that brings another thought to me. Oh my God, here I am doing that shit again. Like, these responses can change over time. If it starts out, yeah, this is just like, to me, this is at least a trial run. But later, like 6 months into it, you're like, no, like, honestly, like, we get along well. Yes. Like, this is a step towards marriage for me now. Yes. Like, things can change over time. It's not a linear thing.
Like, we're going to trial run for a year, and then you can just let it happen how you want it to happen whenever you feel ready.
Right.
But just, like, make sure you understand how they live first.
Exactly. 100%.
It can change your idea of a person.
It can. Okay, so then that gets us to the next big step that partners can take with each other, and that is getting engaged / getting married. I just combined them because if you're getting engaged, like, we already know, like, you're going to get married, right?
No. Not all the time. So we have been engaged for, like, I think we're going on 3 years already. And we honestly don't really plan on getting married. Firstly, I always feel like I have to defend this. I love Hunter more than anything in the world. Our lives are combined. We have 4 pets. We have a car together. Like, neither of us are going anywhere. I trust him more than anybody. Marriage is so expensive. Like, secondly, like, if we do save the money, the hypothetical enough money, let's just say $30,000. And we're like, okay, would we like a house?
Instead.
Or an extravagant night?
Yeah. Well, and two, like, with my thought of that, like, if you're engaged, to me, that's being married almost.
It is.
In my mind.
Like
so whether you get the wedding or not, like, engaged, married, duh.
Well, and...
But talk about that. Like, talk about, like, do you want the big wedding? Do you want, like...
I had a lot of things that I was going to say, but I'm not going to get into all that. But
I feel like we've already been recording for a long time.
I love when people plan a wedding right away. And if that works for you and it's important to you, that's amazing. It's not important to me. It's really not. It never has been. That's the person I'm spending my life with. You know what I mean? Right. Whether we have the title or not. And, like, same last name. I was banned from his last name. So he was going to take mine. And
dang.
Yeah, which is great because my dad was always worried about that because he never had a son to carry on the last name. So now I was going to be carrying on the last name because my fiance wanted it. But at the end of the day, I really don't, like, we're 23. I am not worried about getting married. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I know you said too that you feel like you have to defend that response of, like, not getting married but staying engaged.
I feel like there's such a societal view of, like, if you guys don't get married, he, like, secretly doesn't want you. And in all honesty, if I said, Hunter, let's go get married tomorrow, he would be there. This is, like, what I want. And he doesn't really care either way. We intend on spending our lives together, and I just feel like it's not really the normal view right now, but it's my view, and I like it.
Yeah. Well, and, like, I know I can understand why you feel that you have to defend that because it's not, like, the typical, like, way that society says to do it. But fuck society. Like, you don't have to defend anything. Like, it's your own private life. Like, and for that simple fact, you don't have to tell anyone shit if you don't want to. But we do appreciate it here on this podcast.
Of course.
We are a community of acceptance around here. So that is a good point to bring up, though, of, like, what do you want for engagement? How long of an engagement do you want? Like, until we get married, different things like that. And I feel like
an engagement is, like, to me, it is a promise that he's mine forever now. Like, I have the ring. We, like, of course I don't have it on right now, but we both wear them whenever we leave the house. And like, I don't know, we're not afraid to show other people, like, I don't know, especially at the bar. We always have our rings on at the bar. We're taken. You know what I mean? Whether we have the same last name or not is kind of here nor there for me.
So, like, with that then kind of comes the expectations for marriage. Like, what does a successful marriage look like to each of you? That's important question to ask. What other things do you think, Taylah, are important to ask?
I think this one, because I'm assuming at this point, hopefully, you've been together for some time too when you're making this decision. I would say, like, how you are going to continue to have the spark, because it doesn't just last. You have to make it last. You have to want it to last. You have to do fun things intentionally, and it lasts, right? How are you going to do that? How is your budget going to allow you to do that? How is your time going to allow you to do that? How are you guys going to keep your relationship fun and interesting once you've been reaching a few years? You're getting married, you're getting engaged. How are you going to continuously stay in love and not let the love die? Like,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's another big societal thing is you hear all these old couples are like, you get married and it all gets worse
Yeah.
from there. The old
all
ball
downhill.
and chain, right?
Yeah.
But I never see those men bringing home flowers, planning a date night. I never see those women like showing up to their husband's work event. Like they stop going out of their way to love each other, and then they're shocked when the love dies.
Yeah.
And the spark's gone. You have to make the spark be there. You
Yeah.
have to intentionally make it be there sometimes. You have to choose each other when it's hard. You have to be there and work on it even when it's not fun. And when it is fun, like, it's easy to have fun because you're intentionally doing it, right? I don't know. That would be my biggest piece of advice is work on staying in love with your partner.
Right.
When you are getting engaged
Yeah.
and married, and even past, like, just making your relationship last past marriage.
Yeah. You're not going to ever find the time. You make the time.
Exactly.
For your partner. And how you do that is you continue to date each other even after you're engaged, married, whatever. Like, continue to chase your partner.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Because if you don't,
flirting
they'll
is
find someone
always
who will.
fun. Like, you also see those guys in relationships that go to the bar to flirt, like, to still
Yeah.
feel something. Flirt with your wife.
Yeah,
It's still
literally
fun.
wear change your fucking names. Put on a outfit you wouldn't normally wear and go to a
Like
bar
Modern
and walk
Family,
up.
if you-
Yes, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
It was Claire and Phil. Oh my god, love them. Just watch Modern Family and
Yeah.
do as Phil does and Claire.
You just
some things.
find ways to make it fun.
Yeah.
There's always new things to do. There's always new places to see and travel. There's always there's tons of new dates to try. There's things in
Yeah.
town that I haven't been to, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And also, we didn't explicitly say this, but in my mind, I'm like, if the things that we talking about in like when you're moving in together, I would also recommend you talk about it when you're engaged and married. Like, even though if like Taylah and I don't explicitly say, yeah, talk about finances. Like, talk about finances. I know we just like talked about that with the last big
Well,
step, but
that's-
talk about it in marriage too. Like,
Life is ever changing, and
Yeah.
you change jobs, you change places that you live, you change as a person. What you want and what you feel changes. I mean, you have to grow together.
Yeah.
So those conversations never end.
No.
You add a new car to the budget, you gotta talk about it again.
yeah.
Right?
So like, even though if we don't explicitly say it, like, do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're married, engaged, like, I know some people, like, they won't combine finances until they do that. Okay, like, if you choose that, talk about that, right? Like, those are things you want to talk about.
Or even like, this is a random one, but let's say you guys make it in life, you get a big house. The downstairs has a kitchen, right? Who's doing the downstairs kitchen dishes? You're gonna have to talk about
That
it.
is a random one. Girl, I wish I had that problem. Who's going to do the downstairs kitchen?
I was actually
dishes?
just thinking about when I worked at TLC house cleaning
Yeah.
in Fargo here for a bit.
Yeah.
And we cleaned a few big houses
Like
that had
that?
like second kitchens
Yeah.
in the basement, and I would wonder, like, who's doing the downstairs dishes?
doing them dishes.
We got multiple levels of dishes. It's like my worst nightmare.
Worst nightmare ever. Hopefully they got a dishwasher with that out of the kitchen. I also think it's very, very important to talk about long-term goals and values, such as your career aspirations. Where are you now? Where would you like to be? Where do you want to live in the future? What are different, like, spiritual, religious, whatever beliefs would you want me to participate in those with you? Like, all of these things are, like, long-term goals and values that it is important to discuss.
Literally, too, because I feel like a big issue. I don't want to just bash men the whole podcast, but like a lot of men right now, they want women just to have a wife and kids. If you are like a woman and you have career goals, like let them be important too. Find somebody who can make your career goals important too. Because I feel like children can add a whole new level, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of that responsibility falls on moms. Make sure that that's like, you're having that conversation so you're not just be expected to become like a stay-at-home mom or like dad too, if that's how it is becoming. But make sure that you are like fully on board for what you're getting yourself into if you're going to have like children in the future too.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I've had quite a few couples and individual men who have wanted to be stay-at-home dads, but they struggle to find like a partner who's accepting of that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So like that's
me.
another thing to like,
I love involved dads, but I just have a
conversation.
There's so many like uninvolved dads that it makes me like just want to defend them all the
right
time.
No, yeah,
I love a good involved dad. I love when dads are involved in their kids' lives. I'm a huge fan of that.
I mean, I don't know the exact statistics, so like definitely if I were to compare apples to apples, like or apples to oranges, I've definitely like more often than not I've heard of like the women who are like the stay-at-home mom and they want a career but they don't get that, and
I just
but there
too,
are
like,
the other end of it too that I have heard. So it's not to say like this is the only way we've seen it and heard it. Just be mindful. Just talk about what it is you want. As long as you're open and you're communicative and you're receptive to what your other partner is saying, that's the big ticket there.
I feel like I'm like missing my own point a little bit, but when you're going to have like the conversation of like children, because when you get married, I feel like the next step is kids, right? You really, really need to have the conversation of what divvying up now the new chore of like whole new lives being fully dependent on you, what that divide looks like.
Right.
Because if you don't, that's where I feel like a lot of couples tend to struggle too, is they find one person doing way more than the other, or just not being a good partner anymore like they used to, or those conversations are so important so that you can continue to prioritize your relationship while having new beings that are fully dependent on you at all times too. Have the conversations before the children.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's the next step we're going to talk about after this one is children. But absolutely having these conversations before you get engaged, before you get married, of do you want kids? How many do you want? Do we want to adopt? Do we want to foster? Like, do we, whatever, like all these different things. What happens if one of us can't have children? How are we going to go about that? Like, these are important conversations to have, absolutely, before you get engaged, before you get married. And if you're like on agreement, yes, we want kids, then there's a whole new plethora of questions to talk about that Taylah and I will get into.
Right.
But yeah, I absolutely
that can
agree.
be a really good question to ask in the beginning, because that, like, I have never really wanted kids. I've said that like from the start of mine. And if you have somebody that really wants kids, if you're not asking those questions right away, that it can be also a long-term kind of letdown when you find yourself at completely different paths of what you want long-term.
Yeah. And honestly, that's something that could change too, because I know like Jaden and I were just talking about this last night. Have you ever seen the movie Instant Family? Mm-mm. Okay. It's a really cute movie. If you haven't watched it, watch it. But it's where like this couple foster to adopt some kids. And Jaden and I just got on the topic of like, would you ever want to adopt kids? Would you ever want to foster kids? And I've always known I would love to do that. I think that I would provide a really great home for that. And because I'm a therapist, I just think, I would never be perfect. And I would definitely have my moments, because I have those moments already with kids that are not even mine. But that's something that can change over time too, because when Jaden was talking, it kind of seemed to me that's something that he had just never considered before. So
yeah,
just like bring up like things can change. Maybe at first you're like, yeah, I want to have kids with you, but then if the conversation of, okay, well, what if we can't have kids? Then would you be open to adoption, fostering? Like, yeah, look at it from all angles if possible.
I would love to foster or adopt kids.
Yeah.
I'm so scared of pregnancy. I do not want to be pregnant.
Yes.
I do not want to give birth. I can't think of anything more scary if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But I would love, especially an older one, because I hear that there's so many like older children in the system.
Yeah.
And I honestly am not interested in having a baby that's crying. I'm not interested in having a toddler they're a nightmare and they're very dirty. I would love like an older kid. And that's, I don't know, it's a really good conversation to have.
Yep.
And you can help a lot of different kids in need too if you do decide that path.
Yeah, agreed. If I could, like, I would love to be pregnant, but if I could just skip the birth part, thanks. And if I could also skip the body dysmorphia I know I'm probably going to have after birth, also thanks. Ugh, that's what's scary to me. It was like that. But anyway, that's not what this episode's about. Maybe we'll talk about that in the future once I have kids. Yeah, okay. And then is there other, like, long-term goals, values, or just other questions you think is good for partners to discuss before they get engaged or married?
Saving up for retirement is a good topic to talk about too, because you like, I'll use myself again.
Yeah, go for it.
My dad is really good at finances, and when Hunter was 18, Hunter was really interested in finances. So my dad got him started on like a Roth IRA.
Hell yeah.
And then like 1 year ago, I started mine. So Hunter's over 10K.
Nice.
I'm at 1.
Hell
so
yeah.
I'm always behind, but we didn't have that conversation.
Yeah.
And that would be really sick to, like, if we had started at the same time and I don't know, you guys could retire with the same amount of money and be contributing from both sides if you're having that conversation prior.
Yeah, retirement's important to talk about too. Like that kind of jumps in with like the finances and budgeting and all that. Also, you brought up your dad. That got me thinking, what do you want to deal with your partner's in-laws or your in-laws? Like, do you want to have a relationship? Like, discussing your family dynamics is important. And like, because I know so many couples too who like their relationship suffers because like maybe they have a very difficult in-law to deal with that makes it like puts strain on the relationship because the couple just can't seem to come to an understanding or an agreement. So discuss your in-laws, discuss family, discuss anything like that.
In-laws is a really hard conversation too, and I feel like an ever-changing one also.
Yes.
I don't know, well, you know our whole story, but we don't even really talk to Hunter's parents like at all anymore, but I haven't talked to them personally since I was 17. That's when they like didn't want anything to do with me anymore, and now they don't want anything to do with either of us. But in all honesty, it's been really good for both of us to step away from that. I won't get into it too much, but I don't know, it can put a real strain on the relationship when there's a lot of like influence from the parents of your partner. And it's really important to talk about because obviously every situation there is different too, but it's a really, really important conversation to have. And what that looks like and if they need to stand up for you to their parents, especially in long-term relationships, I feel like there comes a point where you have to like defend your partner over your parents too.
That age-old question of like me or your mom, me or your dad, like like, you know. And
sometimes parents are in the wrong. And you can put them in their place.
Shocking to parents. Parents can be wrong. Yes. Yes, Martha. Yes, Chad. You can be wrong.
Yes, you can be wrong.
You can. Shocking, I know. And that also made me think of blended families too. This is something I would encourage to talk about before you even get into a relationship at all. But especially when you get engaged, married, because like that's a plethora of things, right? Talk about like, okay, if I have a blended family and I have a kid with this other person, like how's that going to look like for our living arrangements? Are you going to have to like also have interactions with my ex-wife who I have a kid with, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, whatever, you know what I mean? Like having that conversation about
and how
other
can
family.
We make it not an unbearable experience because a lot of families like they can't stand their like making it a good experience can be really good for both parties and reduce a lot of mental stress. And I don't know, when there becomes like that partner jealousy, like just have the conversations, get on the same page, prioritize your partner, but also prioritize your child and your ex-wife and find a way to balance all three where you're not like, you know, but definitely have the conversation prior to getting too long-term with the person.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I have two final thoughts with this one. One of them is fidelity and boundaries. So talking about like what constitutes as cheating. Like, is cheating going and getting dinner with your female male coworker after work? Is cheating like kissing? Is cheating having sex? Is cheating like, discuss what that is, what it looks like to you. Also, are you both monogamous? Are you committed to just each other, or are you open to an open relationship, to swinging, to polyamory? Like, do your research, y'all. Like, there's a lot of options out there for you. Have those discussions. Are you open to growth? Like, maybe you're not currently open to monogamy, or not monogamy, to polyamory, but would you consider it in the future? Like, you know, like, have that conversation was one of them. The other one I thought of was discussing health history, like discussing mental health, physical health, chronic conditions. How are you going to support each other? Like, if you have it in your family history where like a certain cancer runs really deep, or a certain mental health illness runs really deep, is that a deal breaker for you? Like,
right.
Like, be honest before you get married. Like,
especially too, because then, like, if you do get married, you're committing to that person even when 50 years from now it might not be fun anymore. They might be terminally ill. Like, you're going to stand by them knowing this, like, you know, the whole time if you have those conversations.
Yeah. And there's some really ugly illnesses out there. Like, I've watched family, friends, people, like clients go through things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, like so many different things. It's really hard to see. So get real about it. If your partner does say like, yes, I have this, do your research on that condition and like actually get an understanding of what it means to have that. And if that's something that you are, yes, I'm here for you, ride or die.
And if you choose that, like how you can even maybe be a support through that, how you can make little daily things easier or helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, what are we going to do when this happens? If/when, like, how can we support each other? How can I support you? How are you going to support yourself? Because that can also create compassion fatigue for the other partner. Like, knowing that your partner, your spouse is going through this mental, physical, whatever illness. How are you going to support yourself through it too, knowing that your partner may not be able to be 100% for you? Yeah. Absolutely. Did you have any other thoughts with the like fidelity boundaries one that I talked about as well?
I would just say that like rules of cheating can be different per partner too.
Yeah.
And I would even argue there are some like levels of things that might not be okay but aren't worth ending the relationship over to you either, and things that aren't okay and worth ending the relationship over. And there's such like a varying level for all of it that it's important to just see where each other is at. And I don't know if you have a boundary that they don't have, like make it like if you're the other partner respecting that boundary.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And like I have a personal example actually to go with this. So when Jaden and I first started dating, he received multiple text messages from his ex who he was dating. And again, I'm not going to name names, but he was always honest with me. Like, he told me like, oh, like she messaged me or whatever. And I never thought he was cheating of me, and I never wanted to break up with him because of that. But I did tell him, I'm like, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, because y'all remember my point on boundaries. It's about what you're going to do, not what you're going to force another person to do. So I would say to him like, okay, like this does make me uncomfortable, because if she feels that she can text you and you're going to maybe respond, maybe not, but she knows she has access to you. And like, that's not okay. Like, I don't want people thinking that you are available in any sort of way, even if he and I have that understanding. And I'm like, if this continues, like if you don't, like if you continue to talk to her, or if she like continues to have access like that, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not putting up with that. Right.
That makes sense.
So like, that's an example kind of, I think, of what you're saying. Like, it's not something I would break up with him over like that first time, but after I set that boundary, and if it continues, then I would have.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, set those boundaries in the first stage. Yeah. Good. Okay. Okay. The last stage that I thought of was having kids. Right off the bat, do you want kids or not? Have that conversation.
Yes.
Okay, Taylah, I'll turn it over to you. What are some questions you think are good for partners to talk about before they decide to have kids? Assuming they want kids. We're going to just assume, like, yes, we want kids for this, okay?
Good. I'm glad you said that. I was
Yes.
like, that is a loaded one.
We're assuming you want kids. What questions do you gonna ask your partner?
I would ask financially again, because I've heard the last time I saw a statistic, it was like $11,000 after insurance to bring a baby home from the hospital.
Fucking home birth. That discuss that.
Yes, I mean that it's for real. It can be so overwhelming and scary and challenging, and if you're going into it completely blind, like at minimum, you've got some sort of pregnancy time to ask some questions with each other, right? If it was an accidental pregnancy or something
Right.
too. But hopefully it wasn't. We're assuming that we want kids.
Right. Because then you get into like, okay, if we have a kid accidentally, abortion, not abortion, yeah. But
Right.
we're assuming you want kids.
The financial is still going to be a burden no matter how you look at it. Like, they're so expensive. How are you going to afford these new costs? How are you going to split up these new costs? How often are you going to go buy the routine things that the babies and kids will need? Mm-hmm. Like, how much of your paycheck, however often you get it, goes just to having the kids around? I feel like the financial conversation can be a big one because it can be so overwhelming if you don't.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get hung up on how they're going to parent their kids,
Yeah.
which is another thing to discuss, but they forget about some of those more logical, basic things of like
Right.
finances.
Well, and so then too, like, if you're having these questions early enough, you should be able to have kids when you're financially ready, hopefully,
Yeah.
rather than just like wanting kids, doing it, and then being like, oh my god, these were more expensive than I thought.
These right here are expensive. What's the return date on this? Like, is there an expiration date? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And that, like, bleeding into your, like, parenting styles, like, how you're going to discipline.
That's a big one.
Yes.
Because I don't know, I studied, I actually went to college for human development and family science, and I specialized in children and adolescents.
Freaking educated queen.
So I would never hit my kids. I have not read a single research article that says hitting your kids leads to any sort of benefit. That is a deal breaker for me. I could not parent with somebody that is down to hit the kids. Like,
yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, that's also a personal of mine of, you will not hit my kids. You will not spank my kids.
there's
do not
no
care.
other relationship dynamic in life where hitting them is an okay answer.
Yeah.
It literally is a criminal act against people
Yeah.
if you hit them, like, in a bar,
Yeah.
on the street. Like, it shouldn't be okay, especially to a little mind that doesn't understand why the reinforcement you're choosing to give them is negative, painful reinforcement.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if, like, because again, this is like your outlook on life, like you, like, having your education in child development. I have my own experience with my education and just the things I've seen. I used to be a caseworker in a homeless shelter for women and children. And I have seen and heard a lot of shit. And I also have as a therapist. So, like, to me, I'm like, no, I had, like, zero tolerance for any of that. But for some, they're like, okay, like, what happens if, like, we just in the heat of moment, like, I, like, slap my kid? Like, what happens after that? Like, talk about that. Like, again, get as specific as you can. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. I
Well,
would
yes.
leave.
I'd take the damn kid and I'd be tailing out of there.
Yes. But even, like, who's going to cook the meals?
Yeah.
How are we going to handle tantrums in a store?
Yeah.
What is that going to look like? Like,
Yes.
when I do think that, like, when you say, okay, if you don't stop throwing a fit over not getting this toy, we're going to leave the fun place. You have to stand by that.
Yes.
You have to do the thing. You have to take the kid out of the fun place. That's a reinforcement that they learn from. That when they do the bad behavior, the fun thing ends.
Yeah.
It's a really good one, but, like, I feel like some parents have a really hard time when they'll say something and then they just won't enforce it. They'll say these threatening things. Actually, I have a family member that does this. It really ticks me off. They just yell, like, at the top of their lungs and say all these threatening things that are going to happen
Yeah.
and don't do anything about it. Like, it's a frustrating parent
Yeah.
style to watch, and it's a really important conversation to have.
Yeah.
When you're going to put down boundaries for the kids, how you're going to execute them too.
Yeah.
In a realistic manner that's going to help them learn what that looks like as a couple
Yeah.
doing it together.
Okay, totally, like, side note, neither Taylah or I have human children, only furry children.
Only my imaginary ones that I've actually been a parent to.
Yeah, okay.
And pretend to parent on.
Deadass though, I have cried true tears over my children, my human children who are not even born yet. I love them so much already and they're not even here. But let us know if you want like a side episode, because I think you and I could totally get into like just parenting styles and like how to discipline and different things. Me too, because I have so much on that. I'm also a family therapist, and so like even though we don't have our own human children, we have the education though, and we've seen things. They're not my kids, but I have 2 nieces and a nephew, and I was there for a lot of their life, like living with them because my sister had them young. So let us know, because I think we could. Or if you don't let us know, we might just do it anyways. Yeah. But yeah. Yes, I agree with you. I agree on that. Like, that would also tick me off, like, that situation.
I even feel like this is such a routine one that people don't talk about, but do you let the baby cry it out, or do you go pick it up? Yeah. Because I've seen that cause a lot of frustration in different parenting styles too, because I don't know, a lot of the women in my family are believers of like, let them cry it out. Yeah. But I have a cousin who tended to her baby every single time it cried. And of all the research that I've studied, that's the best thing to do. So I will be siding with her on that. If I ever have kids, I will be taking her side, and I'll be going every time it cries. It's how you build, like, it's literally how you build a good attachment style, that when they're upset and something is wrong, a caregiver shows up for them. That's the only thing that they're learning. Yeah. And when you let them cry it out, you just teach them that they'll cry and be upset and nobody will come to help.
Girl, we could totally... we're... Never mind. Scratch it. We don't care about your opinion. We're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. Yes. I have so much more I want to say about that, but I don't... I'll save it for when we talk about it. We'll save it. We'll save it. My other point was division of childcare. Like, are you going to pay for like a daycare? Are you going to have a family member come live with you, bring your kid to a family member, or one of you going to stay home? Like, how are you going to do that?
If you are going to do that, having the conversation of like, the money that's brought home is just as important as the work that's being done in the home. Yes. Because you're going to pay out the ass to have your kid watched by somebody else. So if you have somebody in your home that's taking care of the kids, teaching the kids, cleaning up the house, like, you have no idea how much it would cost to have somebody come do all those things for you.
Daycare is so fucking expensive, and it's hard to find good quality daycare too.
And it's hard, like, having a house cleaner come in. Yeah. Just don't undermine the work of whoever is in the home tending to it.
Absolutely.
Your roles are equal.
I agree with that. What other questions would you recommend to people to talk about with their partners?
Bedroom division of the children, I would say, is an important one. Yeah. And, like, I don't know, so my fiance's family, again, like, they have 9 or 10 kids, and they have a 3-bedroom house.
Like, in the house right now? Yeah. You mean? Yeah.
Well, Hunter's gone, so probably 8, and the parents in a 3-bed, 1-bath. Like, yeah. I could not imagine growing up with 3 siblings in my room. Yeah. I feel like that's a really important conversation to have, because I do think that kids deserve their own space.
Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for, and they also are deserving of their own privacy and their own space, too.
I even can get down for, like 2 brothers in a room. Like, growing up with your younger brother, that can be really fun. But when you're packing kids into a room, and even then, like, when they reach teenage years, I do think they deserve their own space.
Yeah, but and however they get that, right? Like, if you have... I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I totally cut you off. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Just like their own like rooms, though. Having your own dresser that nobody else is allowed in, your own door that you can lock. It's really important, and I feel like it's not chill to like pack old kids into the same room and expect them to live comfortably together. I think that having the space for the children that you're bringing into the world is really important, and a conversation worth having, because I don't know, even if you have like a 2-bedroom for now, but then you move into a 4-bedroom and you have room for 1 more baby, like, I don't know. I think it's important to talk about all of that before you go into it, because it's not fair to the kids either to want 4 of them and have 4 of them, but have 1 room for all of them to be in either, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I get that point of, like, it's not fair to them either, because And sometimes people get ahead of themselves and maybe just don't consider that.
And think like,
but it's a good thing to bring up.
They're crossing their own, like, I've always wanted 4 kids. So then I have 4 kids, but I don't actually have the space for 4 kids.
Yeah.
Think about their lives too, please.
Yeah. Because they're human and like they have needs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you have 3 kids and 2 bedrooms like available. Like, so if you have 2 kids living together in one room, how are you going to allow them to have their individual time too? Like, are those kids going to split up the room like time wise? Like one person can get it for a certain amount of time, or are they going to have like their own special space that it's just theirs? Like, figure that kind of stuff out.
Even like the attention of the parents, because kids need so much of your time, and when you have like so many of them, I do not believe that you can give them all the actual amount of mom and dad time that they really need to develop well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Especially when you have like a lot of kids. Yes.
And so I think having the conversation of like not even just bedrooms, but just what is our lives capacity and how many kids fit into that comfortably.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think you should have kids just based on how many you want. I think you need to talk about like how many it makes sense for you guys to have over time too. Because but then that ties back in all the financial, like spatial, emotional, how much your job takes up your time. Like you are bringing like full new life that needs you into the world, and like having the time and space and finances and resources for them is really important to talk about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say that financial planning for the children, not only the childcare costs that we talked about and work flexibility, but college.
Yeah,
what if they don't want to go to college? What are you going to give them? What are gifts you're going to give them for Christmas, for their birthdays? Like, how are you going to make them feel special for those occasions? Like all of those things. Just think about your own childhood and what you would have liked, what you wouldn't have, things you didn't like, right? Like what rituals, cycles do you want to break or bring into your family? And especially that financial aspect, because sometimes like vacations, gifts, like those cost money. Talk about them.
That's one of my favorite Hunter and I have that conversation like all the time with our hypothetical children that we don't actually have. But like the deal breakers from our parents that like will not be entering the way that we parent our children if we ever do have them or adopt them or foster them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because we love just talking about the old things and how now with the education and growth and just aging that we have, how some of the things just really weren't chill to do to kids. Like now that I'm an adult, like I thought it would make more sense as an adult. Now I am an adult and it doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
And it won't be happening over here.
Nope. Not here. Not here. I agree with that. I don't remember if we talked about this, but like the impact on the relationship. So how will you continue to nurture your partnership amidst the parenting? I know we talked about it with the marriage aspect, but like, and with the kids, like when you have kids, like you give so much of your time and of your life to them as well. Like how are you going to make time for yourself and your partner, like continuing to date, like we said in the engagement marriage aspect? I
love that conversation because like some people talk about whether you pick your wife first or your kids first, right?
Yeah.
Your husband first or your kids first. Always pick your partner first. Have them be the priority overall. Because even like when your kids are growing up, they'll grow up to disrespect your partner. And remind them in that new aspect, like, you don't talk to my husband like that. Like that doesn't fly around here. That's my husband, like at the end of the day. That's your dad. Like when you build a strong bond as a couple first, you're so much better as parents. Yeah. When you have each other's back and you understand each other and you still love each other, just like in line with itself. Yeah. Yes, you're setting up a welcoming home for your kids. You're setting up a loving home for your kids. You're setting up a home where they don't go to bed and hear the parents screaming at each other when the kid's asleep, right? Like when you guys are prioritizing that and keeping the relationship between you afloat and happy and prioritized, you are just in turn going to be a better parent without even realizing it. I always think prioritize the relationship first, because you'll find yourself being a really good parent just in turn by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah, it's important to talk about how you will... I feel like I just always come back to the open communication and honesty, because like we have said throughout this episode, these things can change. It's not linear. Like, things will come up. Just talk about it. Like, talk it out with your partner.
For sure.
And like, if you have a kid, like, I know you sometimes, my thought process where I was going to get with that was like bad guy, good guy. Sometimes parents fall into certain roles. Like, communicate with your partner. Like, how are we going to address that?
And switch up the roles too.
Yeah.
Because that, again, that's helping your unit seem stronger to the kids, when like both mom and dad can be the mean one and both mom and dad can be the fun one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving your thoughts on that. I want to say, like, across like all stages, all these big stages that you make with your partner, there are some things to consider. Like, how will you handle stress and change? Like, kind of comes back to the argument. Will you shut down? Will you lash out? Will you seek connection? Right? Brings back to that. Another one, what are your non-negotiables? We talked about this at the top of the episode. What are certain things you just will not push on?
Right.
Yeah. And then, what does support look like to you? Because we all have our own needs. We all have our own outlook on life. And we all have different things, like physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that we need. And your partner is... like, that's the person who you typically go to first, like, you rely on for those things outside of yourself, right? Or outside of, like, whatever, like, you have your village, you have your support team, and usually your partner is one of those primary, like, supports. Right. So talk about how you're going to do that, how you're going to show up for each other every day.
Right. Yeah. And when you are starting off, like, earlier in the relationship, if you are watching this podcast and really, like, utilizing this advice, I just want to say, too, remember that it is okay to leave the relationship and start over. If your dynamic is not working when you have these conversations, you find yourself at opposite ends. There's so many people in the world. There's so much world to see. There are so many people that are going to love you. You don't have to change your boundaries. You don't have to push your limits to make yourself fit with the person that you want right now. Stay true to yourself. At the end of the day, the only person you're going to have until the end of time is you. And you don't want to look back on wasted years, right? Make sure that you're not changing yourself too much to be happy with the person you're spending your life with.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That's really beautiful. And I agree with that. You have the right to so much in your life, especially within your relationships, and you have the right to it without shame, blame, or guilt. And if your partner is making you feel that way, then guess what? You have the right to end that fucking relationship without shame, blame, or any guilt, because you don't ever have to settle.
And being single is not a bad thing. Don't let anybody tell you that it is.
Yeah, take it from two taken women.
Yeah. Take it from us.
Take it from two. I was single at one point.
Okay, no, this is my big sister self-talking. This isn't me. This is my big sister self-advice.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that.
Prioritize yourself. It's okay to be single.
I agree. As the little sister, I also agree. Okay, well, thank you so much, Taylah, for being on the podcast with me. I really appreciate your insight on all of these.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, I feel like, yeah. So don't be shocked if in like a few weeks or so I bring out a parenting episode. But if you liked what you heard today, please like leave a review, leave 5 stars, share with people in your life. Shout out to my editor, Ben. Thank you for all that you do. You're the best. You're amazing. If you want to get in contact to me, or if you have more questions, thoughts for me or for Taylah, you can email me. All my socials and my email are going to be in the show notes down below. But yeah, that's what we have for you guys today. Thank you so much, Taylah, for being on.
Yes, of course.
So great to have you. I upload every Thursday, so make sure to stay tuned in to hear all about life in motion. But until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye.